What's up, everybody? Jackson Fuller, high school sports reporter with the Star News. I'm joined by Will Hutchinson, South Brunswick girls lacrosse coach. This is Friday, and I got to be honest up front, everyone. Will and I just recorded this entire interview, or excuse me, we just had this entire interview, and I forgot to press record. So this is take two. We're going to try and keep it as natural as possible. It was fun to talk, so we're going to do it again. Will, how are you doing? How's quarantine life treating you right now, man?
It's going good, buddy. I'm just trying to stay busy and not think too much about what's going on, and just trying to stay busy around the house.
You said when we first talked, you had a baby on the way. Congratulations! A couple weeks out now, and it's going to be a baby girl, right? That's what you said.
Yeah, May 1st is what the doctors are telling us. So I've been trying to stay busy with that, get her room done and the garage clean so my wife can get back in the garage, and just trying to focus on that right now with no lacrosse.
I imagine, there's no lacrosse, there's not much going on, but I imagine with a baby on the way, you're finding ways to stay busy right now.
I am.
Will, kind of walk me through your coaching background and your coaching kind of progression. I know right now you're the South Brunswick girls lacrosse coach, but when we first met, you were the Hoggard girls basketball coach. I know you've played football. Just kind of walk me through how you got to this point, and have you always wanted to be a head coach?
Yeah, pretty much. I always knew I wanted to come back to South at some point. I played football at South from 99 to 02 and was a student assistant for a couple other teams, baseball and girls basketball, under Coach Rayner and Mike Eisenberg. Went to Wingate to play football, and then when I got hurt, I just started coming back to be around my brother and some of the guys I had played with to help them, and just more of a mentor to them. And went to Brunswick High School when we moved to Virginia. Was tight ends coach there for 3 years. Then moved to Richmond, coached at a 3A school in Virginia, Deep Run High School in the west end of Richmond for a couple of years. Was wide receiver coach there. Had a great couple of groups of kids. Went to Virginia Tech, Georgia. Then ultimately came back, to be a little closer to my daughter and some family, and emailed Scott Braswell, and he was the one who responded and was interested, and he brought me into the Hoggard family, and just kind of went from there. After football, Bubakar brought me on, and Jeep brought me on to baseball after that, and I was around there for about 4 years.
Braswell, Bubakar, and Jeep are three great coaches to learn from. I don't think I ever got to cover Coach Braswell while he was the actual head coach at Hoggard, but I've come to know him a little bit through like phone interviews and just chatting every once in a while. And he loves mentoring younger coaches and helping them kind of take the next steps. What was the biggest thing that you learned from Coach Braswell while you were an assistant with him?
Just caring about the kids, Scott and Craig. I mean, that was a great staff. Those years I was at Hoggard, we had a great staff. Great group of guys to be in the field house and in the locker room with. But Scott's thing was always about the kids. He never really worried about winning. Winning would take care of itself. But if you didn't care about the kids, nothing else would come to fruition of that. So his big thing was always taking care of the kids and taking care of each other.
And I know the biggest thing you learned from Bubakar was how to yell at the officials, right?
Oh, I don't know if I say that. Bubakar may see this.
I'm just kidding.
No, Bubakar, he's another great coach. He wealth of knowledge. Obviously played for Coach Thompson at Georgetown, and just being around Bubakar, he cared about those girls. Yeah. And just all of them. Jeep too. It was just they all cared about the kids, and that was just kind of the culture at Hoggard.
Mm-hmm. And now you're the girls lacrosse coach at your alma mater, but you didn't play lacrosse any at all growing up, right?
No, lacrosse wasn't a thing here when I was growing up. It was football, basketball, baseball, that kind of order. And, I kind of just lucked into it. Coach Rayner, he's been at South since I was in middle school, and we've known each other 22 years, and we stay in touch. And, you know, I went by his office one day just kind of touching base and asked him if he had any coaching positions. And he goes, well, I've got a girls lacrosse. I need a lacrosse coach. I said, well, you know, I think I can do it, you know. He goes, well, let's start the paperwork, see what happens. And I think it was one day right before Christmas break, he called me and said, school board approved you. Let's get going. I was like, awesome.
That is awesome. So was that the Christmas break right before your first season? So
yeah, that would have been 2018, Christmas 2018 for the 2019 season.
Mm-hmm. So what's been your process learning, you know, the game? You know, obviously you've had to, I'm sure, kind of immerse yourself in kind of trying to know more and, you know as much as you can, so you can kind of shift that to the girls. As someone who just didn't play, how have you kind of learned the game of lacrosse?
Well, U.S. Lacrosse has a program for coaches to kind of continue education, and, you know, the Athletic Association has some classes. And really, I just reached out to Erin Redmond at Hoggard. You know, when I called her and told her I was getting the job, she invited me out to some workouts, just kind of talked me through some drills and kind of basic stuff that I came back and I implemented here and trying to do the best I can.
Yeah, we're fortunate in this area. We've got some really good lacrosse coaches, both on the boys and the girls side. I mean, is there a relationship within boys and girls lacrosse coaches with a sport that might not be the most popular or the most, you know, participated in right now, that you guys all kind of work together to try and get the community involved and interested?
Well, you know, obviously I can't speak for the boys side outside of my relationship with Dale, who is our boys coach. But as far as the women's coaches, you know, me and Aaron and Shelby, I probably talked to them the most. And Hanover had a new coach that I've become friends with pretty quick, and we talk back and forth. But yeah, we kind of help each other. I would say, you know, the conference went to a thing where we were only going to play once this year, so that opened up 10 games, and had to start getting on the horn and texting each other, hey, do you want to play a second game? And that's what we did. You know, we kind of helped each other out, and this is a good conference, not only in just other sports, but, you know, there's a lot of great coaches in this conference.
Did you like that decision to only be required to play each other once? I know it gives y'all opportunities to play some new teams and, you know, step outside the typical 2 games against Hoggard, 2 games against Laney stuff.
I grew into it. You know, it was kind of a shock at first when that decision came down from the ADs, but I think overall, all 6 of us, 7 of us, however many there are of us, I think we really liked it because it did open up the schedule, and it did open up for some opportunities that we wouldn't normally get, because you play everybody twice. That's 14 games. The state only gives us 16 to play. Mm-hmm. So instead of finding 2, you're finding 10, which was nice to be able to go into South Carolina and play a little more level competition in my mind.
How many games did y'all get in this year?
I got in 3, North Myrtle Beach, and then non-conference games against West and Ashley.
And y'all had 1 home game, right? That North Myrtle Beach game was the home game?
Well, the Ashley game was the game before this quarantine or suspension started was a home game. So we had 2 home games on the turf under the lights, which was pretty special for the girls.
Yeah, that had to be it. I just coming out to all the Brunswick schools and seeing the process. I can't imagine being a kid and saying, oh, it feels so far away to play there. And then one night you get to step on and play under the light. Yeah. It had to be a really cool feeling. Something that we've talked about is, you know, not on here, not with a recorder on, is just the lack of middle school lacrosse in Brunswick County. I mean, where do you think that makes the biggest difference? Is it within numbers? Is it within training? It's probably a little bit of both, right?
It's a little bit of both. You know, in previous conversations we've had after you did the story on wrestling, you know, I don't want to say it's an unfair advantage, but it certainly kind of puts us behind the 8 ball, because most of these kids never picked up a stick until we started workouts in September. And if there was that middle school program, there would be a little more skill development, and there wouldn't be as much basic work those first couple of weeks and months of workouts, to where we could just hit the ground running, offense, defense type of things that we'd be able to put in. And, I don't want to say it's a disadvantage, but certainly puts me and Dale and the other coaches over here behind the 8 ball a little bit.
Yeah. It's funny. The first couple of days of practice, you made me think about back to my middle school baseball team, where there was baseball before middle school and little league. We just weren't very good at it. So the first couple of weeks of practice, we're learning all the basics, and so we got our butts beat pretty good in middle school baseball. But yeah, definitely, it's just something that when you can jump into a sport and right away rolling with what you want, and your kids understand, that is a huge advantage and plus. When do you guys start with workouts? Y'all start right when school starts, is that right?
I started sometime in September. I text the returners saying, hey, how do you want to handle all season? I kind of left it up to them. I was going to do it a couple of days a week. They ended up wanting to go every day. So, that's been very helpful when the state changed the rules to where you could have as many out there as wanted to be out there for workouts. So we've been going since first week of September up until the suspension a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. How do you go about recruiting girls out to play on the team? I know you had a big group of freshmen this year. What's your process in kind of trying to find girls to come play for South Brunswick Girls Lacrosse?
Well, I had an interest meeting end of August after they'd been in school a couple of weeks, and I think I had 30 show up. But then once workout started, it kind of dwindled down to about 15, 16 girls, and that ended up being the team outside of a couple others coming out from other sports that I knew wouldn't be around until those sports were done. We share a lot of athletes at South, which is a great thing because that means they're doing something. They're not just sitting at home, not doing anything. But, we had a core of about 16 girls that were at everyday workouts, weightlifting, who put in the work to get better.
Nice. Let me run this by you. And this question, guys, I didn't ask Will in our previous unrecorded interview. What do you think about girls lacrosse, splitting that with boys lacrosse and moving it into the fall, where you're not competing with softball and girls soccer, and in the fall you'd really only be competing with volleyball? Of course, there's some other sports, but I think those are kind of the main four other than girls basketball. Would you be against that, or what do you think about that?
This year I would have been against it. Two of my best players, Camille Gannon, runs cross country. She's the only girl that runs cross country at South. So I would have been without her, or she would have had to make a choice that would have been unfair to her. Mm-hmm. Rebecca Schuyler, who was a senior who's going to St. Andrews in the fall to play lacrosse, she played tennis. So she would have had to make a choice.
Interesting. And those are two sports that I didn't mention, and but they're kind of, those are two. I know those are two of your standout girls. So I don't know. I've just always found it interesting that you've got girls lacrosse competing against two other sports. But I understand it's because boys lacrosse is in spring as well, and they want to split that with football. So hey, maybe the NCHSA knows more than me about their sports. Who would have thought, huh?
Well, I mean, if you're still, there'd be a lot of fighting over the field.
Yeah.
You'd have to share the field with boys soccer, and then with football, obviously, is the precedent and the priority in the fall. So, I kind of I would prefer just to leave it the way it is, personally.
Yeah, good. I agree. You've changed my mind. So, all right. Well, last question for you. I'm going to ask you a different question that I've been asking everyone else, because I usually ask, what is the one sport you wish you could come back? But I've been watching a lot of old games recently on, ESPN. I spent 5 hours on 2 nights ago watching the Miami Heat championship from 2013. So if you could pop any old game in the TV right now and sit down and watch it, what game would you choose?
Well, I'm a Tar Heel. So obviously the first one that comes to mind would be Connor's kick against Miami back in 2004. I was at that game when I was in school. He had missed a couple of kicks and then hit the game winner against Miami. But other one was, I think I was the 8th grade, Michael's last game with the Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
He hit the shot to win title number 6, and that's one of my favorite games to watch. That or the Fluke game from the 97 season. Those are 2 great games where he just laid it all out there.
I remember watching both those games. The Connor Barth one, I was in Miami, still living there. And I remember after that game telling my parents, we are not moving to North Carolina. And and the second, and then Michael Jordan, that's probably my earliest sports memory, is watching that game and that finish with my dad. Obviously, huge Jordan fan, just like every kid was when he was at the peak of his power. So I'll agree with you on one of them. The other, we don't need to talk about anymore, although all the respect in the world for Connor Barth, the Hoggard guy, great career, and threw a dagger at my soul with that kick against Miami. So awesome.
Well, you got to remember, he missed like 2 or 3 kicks before that.
I know. Y'all that game,
he hit the one that mattered.
That game for sure. That was Miami didn't play well, and that was kind of the beginning of the downfall for Miami, was right around then. And so I'll blame Connor Barth for that then. But Will,
I'm sure he'll take the blame for that one.
He'll be glad to. Thank you so much for joining me, man. I had a treat talking to you twice. It was fun. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully sooner rather than later we can talk face to face on a field sometime.
All right, sounds good, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Take it easy, Will.